There's apparently been huge gameplay leaks, and Force Gaming is reporting on them. I want to check out this video. Let's see what's up.
So, about an hour of Diablo 4 gameplay leaked a few days ago. This came amid those massive GTA 6 leaks and kind of got lost in the shuffle as a result. Not for me, though. I couldn't care less about GTA, but Diablo, that is my jam. So while everyone else was distracted with this GTA business, as well as a lot of Twitch drama, coincidentally, tangentially.
What are you talking? No! Force? What do you mean? There's no Twitch drama. What are you talking about? Nothing's happened over the last couple of days. We're all fine here in Twitch land. Like, what? Excuse me.
Related to the world of gaming, that was also keeping people busy. As for me, I sat down and watched every single second of this Diablo 4 leak, all 53 total minutes or whatever it was, going through frame by frame, and oh boy, do we have some stuff to talk about. A lot of really cool things here from various gameplay systems. I'll look at the combat, how that's been shaping up. We saw like world traversal and exploration systems, gathering. Yes, there is gathering in this game like an MMO. Got to look at some dungeons, as well as a peek at the in-game cash shop along with their current prices, which if my conversion estimates are at all accurate, it actually doesn't seem that bad, you know, in the
Force over here is going like, it actually doesn't seem that bad. Come on, Force. Come on, Force. Come on, man. Dennis, come on. Come on, dude. Come on, don't be like that.
Context of it would be great if this game didn't have a cash shop and a season's pass, but that's not really likely in today's like live service environment. But we don't need to go into that shtick like every time this topic comes up. Point is, does seem relatively fair if my guesses are accurate, but everything, like all this stuff, is way up in the air. It involves a little bit of guesswork, yes, and it is of course subject to change. Oh, and I should note, I will not be showing actual leaked footage here.
Of course
not happening. It's a surefire way to get this video struck down, got DMCA'd or whatever. Also, just even talking about it, I think it poses a little bit of a risk, but generally,
yeah, even talking about it, Blizzard is going to like you less. Let's put it like this. This is going to be a fact. Like, Blizzard is not going to be that happy with Force talking about leaked footage. Most companies won't be happy, but to be honest, there's not much that they are going to do. I don't think that Force would end up like being blacklisted by Blizzard or anything for this, because once the information is out there, you gotta talk about it. It's just that simple. It is what it is.
Discussing things that are already out in public, as there are articles and Reddit posts and all sorts of stuff written about the information within the leak. All of that is out there, not putting the genie back in the bottle. Anyways, we got a lot to get into, lots of interesting information here, so let's just go ahead and jump in. Generally, to set the groundwork here, the leaked footage consisted of a mix of activities. The player was running around doing various side quests, got in a couple of dungeons, did some main story quests, explored the overworld, and even spent some time in town interacting with various NPCs and vendors. So for starters, I gotta say, combat is looking fantastic. Everything feels and sounds very weighty and impactful. Now, this was the case all the way back in 2019 when I played a very early build of the game back at the in-person BlizzCon when that was still a thing. And it looks to be even more fine-tuned at this point, as you would hope being 3 years later. But yeah, I'm very impressed with how combat is looking in Diablo 4. It looks pretty awesome. The particular tester who leaked this footage was playing as a barbarian. He had a few long cooldown abilities, 2 of which appeared to be buffs with roughly 30-second cooldowns. Awesome. And he had this big offensive attack with a 60-second cooldown. This did like a Hammer of the Ancient style slam, which would stun enemies in a somewhat small radius. And then it would be followed up immediately with this swing of these 2 massive chains that actually like filled up the entire screen, dealing massive damage.
That's some God of War shit right there.
As for his basic resource builder, it looked like Frenzy. It provided a stacking buff that made attacks progressively faster, and his resource spender was Diablo 4's equivalent of Seismic Slam, except instead of a slam, it is an upheaval of rocks. In fact, the ability is called
Shockwave.
Upheaval. We've known about it. It's been shown in a ton of footage for D4 in the past, and it's a really cool looking ability. In terms of the pacing of combat, enemies did seem to require a few hits to actually take down, except for like the occasional tiny minion. Almost nothing.
This is a good thing, enemies requiring a few hits to take down. Like, I'll be real. I I like beefy enemies more so than the traditional end game that you tend to get with the RPGs, where it's like you hit a button and the entire screen explodes 5 times over and everything gets obliterated in one hit.
Thing that he fought would be one shots, although it's important to note that the player was under-leveled the entire time. He progressed from levels 31 to 33 while he was spending time in zones that were level 35 plus, because this is kind of MMO styled in that there are zones that have levels. The NPCs within those zones are going to be that level. So that certainly played a role in the time to kill being a little bit on the slower side. Also, I should note that leveling combat tends to be way different from end game combat in most ARPGs. I don't know if they're going to go exactly along the same lines of the sprinting at full speed, AoEing everything on the map with your entire screen filled with enemies and particle effects, like they do in Diablo 3 or Path of Exile's end game. Either way, the footage doesn't give us any indication one way or the other. I like what we see here, at least as it pertains to how the pacing is while leveling. I kind of like it. I like the slower pace that they're showing here. It looks pretty good. Now, before we jump in to talk about the other bits of gameplay systems, the world, the exploration, I do want to touch a little bit on the UI and map, as there were some noteworthy things here. The UI was pretty straightforward. This particular tester was playing on an ultra-wide monitor, so keep that in mind. Some of the positioning stuff might change slightly for 16:9 resolutions. Also, happy to see ultra-wide support. I got an ultra-wide monitor last year. I really enjoy it. I like games that support it. So the minimap and quest log were both in the upper right-hand corner. Pretty simplistic and clean-looking outlines there. Chat was located in the bottom right, because again, this is like a shared world game, so you will be chatting with other players as you're roaming through the open world and towns. And then
chat has traditionally always been bottom left for most of these games. Weird that in this case it's bottom right.
Bottom center was the skill, the health, and the XP bar. And yeah, I think everything looked really clean in this particular build, this current version of the UI. I like the way it looks, not many complaints here. As for the map, I got a pretty good look at this. He pulled it up a few times, but in particular when he was in town, I got to see everything. There were icons for every different type of NPC and vendor in town, the various shops, the blacksmith, the jewel crafter, repair, stable, etc., etc. There was also an option to pin a location. Now, presumably this is going to let you mark spots for everyone in your party to see, or even if you just want to mark a spot yourself and then just track it on your mini map, this seems to be an option that you'll be able to do. Also, when pulling up the map, at the top of the map screen was the name of the zone that you're in, as well as its level, like the level of the zone, and range, your renown within that zone, combined with this list of unlocked
renown. They actually imported renown from World of Warcraft into Diablo 4. Well, all right then.
And collectibles plays into like this zone progression. Things like waypoints, quest, dungeons, chest, and a few other icons that I couldn't quite make out what they were for. These would work towards leveling you up. As you do these things, uncover these things, unlock these things, you gain more renown, and then once you fill up your renown in a zone, you're gonna get some reward. It reminds me a bit actually of how map completion works in Guild Wars 2. I really like it in that game, and if it does indeed function the same way, I think that's a nice addition to D4, which is really, it feels more and more MMO the more you dive in.
To be honest, if they're going to take away from any MMO, then Guild Wars 2 is one of the better ones to take from. The way that the systems work in Guild Wars 2 is really, really good.
Into the game. The map page also had a journal with your current quest, be it the campaign or side quest. Mousing over any town on your map would show all of its available services with their little individual icons. So this will likely mean that certain towns won't have everything, like maybe there won't be an alchemist or a blacksmith in some smaller towns, but bigger towns will have all of that. You'll be able to tell what NPCs are in every location just by mousing over that particular location. And as you drag your mouse over the minimap, it will highlight the various zones with a distinct outline for the zone, as well as if you've discovered it, it'll give you the name and the level range and all of that. One more thing that is very MMO-like. There are particular regions and then particular zones within those regions, and they have level ranges. It's really like an MMO, isn't it? Okay, so now I want to dive into the world stuff, and this is where we get a really lot of the cool features about like the exploration and the play space and things that you'll be doing and stuff like that. The world, from what I saw here, looks absolutely massive. massive. Like piecing together how the character that I saw moving through the zone, the time it took to go from one spot to the other, and then seeing the size of the world map. Seems like this game might be quite huge. They've said as much, but you know, everyone says their game's big when they're
people constantly lie about their size. Everybody's like, my map's so big. My map's so big, you have no idea how big my map is.
Trying to make a big game. They're like, it's the biggest one we've ever made. It's the biggest one ever existed. Looks like D4 might be pretty big. That's cool, right? Also, I love the setting. This isn't new information or news, but man, it's all very dark. They really have stuck true to that initial promise of going more in that more grim
Sanctuary is
setting.
always an
it's
amazing
not a
setting.
bright, colorful game. They have sharp divergence from the complaints and criticisms around D3 when it comes to that aspect of the game. Every time you step into a new zone, as you move from one to the next, there'll be a little pop-up in the center of the screen that will show you the zone's name as well as its level. And then as you move around the map, whether you're just exploring, grinding, heading towards a quest or whatever, you will occasionally see these little markers for public events that are nearby. These will be indicated by a little opaque red ring that will highlight an area where an event is taking place. And then if you walk into the ring, you will then join the event, and it will have a name as well as a little bit of text telling you what your objective is, like if it's take out enemies. In fact, I did see the player interact with one of these world events. He did this thing called Defiled Ground, where he had to slay these channelers to disrupt a ritual. Unfortunately, the recording was cut up, so I didn't actually get to see what happened once you complete it. Presumably, some loot drops. It's an ARPG, right? Also, a lot of the quests that he did.
Usually events like that, it'll probably either end or escalate. So it's like, oh, you've done the first couple of waves. Now it escalates into something else. Now you've done more waves. Now it escalates again. Or it ends.
Were very similar in nature, where they would paint like a big circle in an area and then ask you to do something, whether you have to find an NPC, the entrance to a building or cave, find and eliminate an enemy, whatever. Rarely in the quests that I saw were you being pointed to the exact location of the thing. You would be given a general area and then would have to search within that area. And one thing I really like that this game is doing is the interactable world traversal. So you can climb and scale walls and cliffs at various locations, as well as other things like jump over ravines or go through narrow passageways. Very similar to what was done and seen in Lost Ark. You go up to the spot that's clearly an interactable location. You then click a button. In Diablo 4's case, it looks like that is spacebar. And then your character does whatever it is, going up or down a ladder or a cliff, jumping across something, scurrying through, again, whatever it happens to be. I also liked this was denoted by these like little glowing footprints at the location. That is what your indication that there is some like interactable traversal thing. And I think this is really cool. One played out example was the player had to find his way into this keep to complete one of the main campaign quests. But as he walked up to the front door, it was locked shut. So he walked around the area until he eventually found this location where the wall could be scaled. So he climbed up the wall, got to a ledge, climbed up another wall, jumped over a couple of gaps, went down a ladder, making his way in and going through these areas, fighting some enemies in between. He was then able to interact with a pulley system to raise this portcullis and complete the quest. And this was all pretty cool. Feels like way more exploratory and immersive than Diablo 3's mostly flat environment. Like, yes, D3 has some terrain elevation and descending, but having this extra layer, I think, adds a lot more verticality. And
the big important thing is, can I use heroic, not heroic leap, what was it called? It was jump attack in Diablo 2. Can I use jump attack to mantle over as a barbarian? That's the most important thing. Can sorceresses teleport over these things, or is it like, no, you gotta climb. Gotta go climb. That'd actually be cool. You could just like, oh, what? Who remembers right-clicking with jump attack closer to where your barbarian was, like right on the edge of your character model, and that would cause your character to jump ridiculously long distances. I remember doing that in Diablo 2, and your character would go like, what? And then you're just like, woo! You might as well start the music. Do, 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 do.
And depth to the world, and I really like it. I think it looks pretty good. It looks, again, more immersive. I also saw him go through a couple of dungeons. These looked really cool. Pretty simple stuff. You will move through multiple scenarios with objectives or targets to eliminate along the path. So you go in the dungeon and then there's a locked door and oh no, some enemies spawn in. So you kill the enemies and then you can go through the door, or you walk up to this tomb, opening it, hoping to find a crown or something, but oh no, a boss spawns. Stuff like that, you know, basic ARPG like dungeon progression. Dungeons also seem leveled. There will be multiple levels, but instead of going through like in Diablo 3, these ones just happen in and of themselves. You will load into a dungeon, but then within the dungeon, you are fluidly moving through the levels. And a lot of it also involves that interactable terrain where you're jumping a gap or going down a ladder as you navigate through this environment. All really cool stuff, really good. I really liked it. Oh, and from what we saw, there are a lot of dungeons. Now, we actually already knew this. I remember they said somewhere like 150 dungeons were in the game. Every single zone that he was walking through would have several dungeon markers on the map. It seems like they're just about around every corner. So if you like dungeons and how they're presented, and
I believe that the game's going to be like Overworld is going to be set in stone, so it's actually going to be hand created. But then when you go into dungeons, those are probably going to be procedurally generated. That's what I would expect.
Sort of gameplay elements that roll in with them, which I do really like that. There's a lot of them in this game. That's pretty cool. Some other notable stuff about just the world and stuff. There were interactable objects that played into the story. So you'd find like this tablet, you could click on it, and there'd be a couple paragraphs to read about the lore if you care about that stuff. Resources are in the game. For some reason, that completely flew over my head. I didn't know that was a thing. But yes, there will be like herbs and ore to collect in the environment. And
you'll probably be able to craft
crafting
potions.
System. More MMO elements in D4 that I just, for some reason, was unaware of. And then also there were these items called Lost Caches that would reward permanent stat boost for all of your characters on a realm. So in this gameplay, the player came across one that added 2 strength, and it said 2 strength for every character of yours on this.
So basically that means, I'm assuming that also counts towards new characters. So that means that you coming up with alts is going to be easier, which kind of goes hand in hand with the philosophy that we're talking about as you play through the battle pass, that you eventually unlock the boost for your alts. Looks like this is another mechanic that facilitates the leveling of alts.
This particular realm, this feels a lot just like long-term account progression.
It's the badass points of Borderlands. I think Borderlands 2, right? Had the badass points.
I don't know what the realm delineation is. I'm assuming a dividing factor between like hardcore characters or seasonal characters or normal characters. I presume that's what it is, unless realms actually mean like MMO style servers. Again, I don't know what.
The antiquated server structure returns to curse everybody with segregated communities. I think that in the case of Diablo, usually realms was referencing to EU and US, which still kind of sucks because probably means, I mean, again, this is a big assumption, but like if you think about Diablo 2 and even Diablo 3, I think you would have US West realms, US East realms, EU West, EU Central, or something like that. And you would have all of these different realms. And so depending on where you create your character, that limits the people that you can play with, which, yeah, it looks like that's going to be a thing. That is probably going to be a thing. There's going to be realms, and depending on which realm you create your character, that is going to limit the people that you can play with. I hope not. That'd be okay if you can freely hop between them, though. Is it? The problem is, according to what this mechanic that Force is saying, assuming that you are getting, you get +2 strength for all characters in this realm, doesn't seem like they would just allow you to hop to a different realm. You'd probably have to create a new character there. Not a big fan of that. Not a big fan of like old school realm structures.
what that distinction is, but yeah, these things are like a realm-wide progression, account-wide progression in a sense. Okay, let's jump into town, because the player did spend a bit of time going in and out of town, interacting with a few NPCs, and we gleaned some information here. So there is a stable. We know that mounts are in the game. These are unlocked after completing the campaign. When he spent time in the stable, we saw there were multiple tabs. There was one for the mounts themselves, because there will be different mounts for you to collect. One for saddles, which looked to just be cosmetic. I'm not sure if there are any stats associated with that or not. And then one for trophies, and I do believe these are just additional things you can toss on your mount, like here's a spike with the skull of some cool boss that you defeated or something along those lines. There was an NPC called the Purveyor of Curiosities. This is gambling. He sells unidentified items that you exchange these murmuring orbs for, and it was
This has always been a thing, by the way, unless you can buy the murmuring orbs for real money. Like, this has always been a thing in Diablo, by the way. Like, even in Diablo 1, you could gamble on items. You could go talk to Wirt, if I remember correctly, and you could gamble on items on Wirt. You could gamble on items. There was another dude in Diablo 2 that you could also gamble on items, and I would always gamble on the skull cap whenever I was making a new character, or whenever I was like restarting my progression on Battle.net, because a lot of times I would take long breaks, lose all my characters, then come back. But I would always gamble on the skull cap because I was trying to get the Tarn helm, which was this cap that gave you +1 to all skills or something like that. So that has always been a thing in Diablo, the fact that there's like item gambling built in. It's not really gambling per se, but yeah, there's random items that you can buy. But see, the interesting thing about the way that it worked in previous Diablo games, at least, is that you have a certain level of control over what you get, which curiously enough is better than curious armor crafting and Sunbreak. Yes, I will bring that up, because you would be able to influence by looking at which item you would gamble on. You could actually pick, so you want to gamble on what? You want to gamble on a chest piece, you want to gamble on a helmet, you want to gamble on a ring. You get to choose, and you would know what are the uniques that come out of each of these things. So you'd gamble on them and see if you were going to get it or not. So at least there's some level of influence as to which items you can get in the game.
That these orbs would be found by completing those world events that we talked about earlier. So you do world events, you get this special currency separate from the base currency of gold, and that is what is spent on the gambling at this particular NPC. There was also a weapon vendor that sold a rotating stocks of items that would be changing within a set duration of time. Blacksmith was where you could craft weapons, armor, as well as repair and salvage items. There was a scroll vendor who sold the town portal scroll, as well as the scroll that brings you back to the entrance of a dungeon. And he also sold a summoning scroll, which is said to be used to summon party members to your location. That sounds pretty cool. And then finally, there was an alchemist. You would go here to upgrade your potion strength. The alchemist also had elixirs, which would give you boost to things like precision, crushing, assault. There were elemental resist elixirs. And you can also refine resources at the alchemist, your ores, herbs, and leathers. And then finally, the alchemist sold incense, these 20-minute buffs of various kinds.
The alchemist sold incest? What?
Sources at the alchemist, your ores, herbs, and leathers. And then finally, the alchemist sold incense, these
incense. Okay, never mind. False alarm.
20-minute buffs of various kinds, increasing your strength or your crit or your hit chance or whatever. Progression systems. The player did level up twice during the recording. Both times, leveling awarded a single skill point. And the skill tree, which we saw, was very expansive. It was a web-style skill tree with a lot of branches and potential paths to take. It's very similar to Path of
Swellen, thank you very much for becoming grossly incandescent. Tip of the hat. Appreciate the support. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Exile skill tree, and we have seen this outside of the leaked footage. Like, there have been examples of the skill tree. Blizzard has showcased.
I thought that skill tree was Paragon. What are they calling it? Paragon boards? I thought those were Paragon boards.
This in some of their prior blog posts. Also, there were weapon levels. Now, I don't know if this is Barbarian specific or not, but this player improved weapon levels numerous times throughout the recording. He reached mace level 3, which awarded this passive damage boost to stunned enemies. This would be doubled whenever using maces. He reached sword rank 1, which gave bonus fury whenever hitting crowd-controlled enemies, which would be doubled when using swords. This is just like an on-use progression system. The more you use these weapons, the better you get and the more bonuses that you get. Again,
That's a cool
I don't know
system.
if this is barbarian specific or not. I'm just unaware. Okay, so now let's go ahead and talk about the in-game shop, because we did get a look at the current iteration in the Friends and Family Alpha. Okay, so the in-game shop was broken up into two tabs. There was the cosmetic tab as well as the palladium tab. The palladium is the name of the in-game currency. For the test, they were crediting players 5,000 free palladium that they could use to try out the shop, and you spend it as of now on just cosmetics. At least that's what they had in this build. There's gonna be more than just cosmetics though. Cosmetic tab had some featured items.
Why does it need to have palladium? Why can't we just, like, as a show of good faith, as a show of good faith, just sell it for the money? Like, why you got it? No, it's palladium. Palladium. You gotta buy palladium. It's gonna be in probably like an inconvenient number. It's not like, oh, I want to get this skin, I need to get this amount of palladium. You're always gonna be left with a little bit left over. We all know how this stuff works.
There was various sets, a different number of pieces. So the Lion of Ariat set was a full set for the Barb, which cost 2,500 palladium. Raised by Wolves was a full set for Rogues, which cost 2,500. There was the Sunken Treasure set. This was a 3-piece set for the Druid that cost 1,500. There was also a 3-piece set for your horse that cost 700. A full set for Druids that cost 2,500, and a 3-piece set for Rogues that cost 2,000. Total shot in the dark, but it's not unheard of for like 100 in-game currency to be equivalent to $1 at a base. And then as you buy bundles, you get like percentage discounts, right? The higher the bundle, the more value you get. As a baseline,
800% value. Let's go.
If we say $1 per 100 in-game currency, this is a guess. Okay, make that clear. This is just a guess. But if that is the conversion based on these current prices, they actually don't look that bad. If you do that, then these 2,500 full sets would go for $25 for a full cosmetic set. And no, it
doesn't look too bad. $25 for a full cosmetic set doesn't look too bad. Welcome to the status quo. Welcome to the status quo. $25. That's not that bad. I disagree.
$5 for a full cosmetic set. And no, it is a lot. It's like the third of a price of a full AAA like retail box price game.
Third of a price? A little bit more than that. Games don't cost $75.
But also in the world of cosmetic skins, that is in the medium range when it comes to pricing. There are plenty of games that sell cosmetic skins for $40, $50, $60. That is not uncommon. I know.
Aren't those free-to-play games, though? Games that sell skins for that much, are those not free-to-play? This is not a free-to-play game. See, again, to me, it all comes back to why? Why can't we have at least 1 year of service for the price that we're paying for the box? Why can't we, like, that's the way that I look at it, and that's always going to be the way that I say it. Listen, and this is me already compromising, right? This is me already compromising. Can we just have 1 year of service? Just 1 year of service where you're not going to nickel and dime us, and then you can nickel and dime us on the next year. Now, that'd be too reasonable. That would be too reasonable. Mounts in WoW cost $50. It's like, Jesus Christ. Sorry, any cans cast this week? No, not really. Sorry. I've been busy. Been busy playing New World.
So a lot of caveats here. This game does have a season pass. We know that, and it is a full box price game. We know that as well. So I'm not saying this is great. I would love for cosmetics to just be unlocks in game, but that's not the world we live in. And again, we don't need to go down this rabbit hole every time this conversation.
Yes, we do. We need to go down the rabbit hole. Let's all go down the rabbit hole together, and let's see just how much we're getting ripped off every single day. Let's all go down this rabbit hole together, guys.
Conversation comes up within the context of, boy, people sure do charge a lot for cosmetic skins and outfits in games, whether they're free to play or full price. If the conversion that I'm again guessing, if that is accurate as well, these actually seem reasonable. All of this is subject to change. It involves some guesswork. We don't know for sure, but who knows? We'll see what happens. But that is the in-game shop. Some other noteworthy details from this leak that I want to bring up. The game had a lot of unfinished bits, and I'm talking things that were just completely missing textures, a lot of walls, a lot of pathways, a lot of bridges, and then buildings that were basically just massive gray boxes. Also missing was voice acting. There was none. And every NPC that the player talked with had a text-to-speech dialogue, like the baseline Microsoft text-to-speech thing. It sounded hilarious.
Good old Microsoft Sam still working after all these years. He's never going to let you down. Microsoft Sam, never going to let you down.
It was really ridiculous sounding. It was actually, it was entertaining because it was so ridiculous sounding. But yes, textures missing. The voice acting isn't even in the game yet as of this build, all of that. And obviously the stuff is coming. I just wanted to mention it was funny. Something actually gameplay related that is worth mentioning, loot drops, very, very limited. A far cry from like the showering of loot that we saw in Diablo 3.
Red flags. Who wants to buy some magic chance? Huh? Who's looking to get some magic chance? Let's go, baby.
In the hour of gameplay that I watched, I only saw a handful of items drop. I think it was under 5. I'm not exaggerating. Most of that, there was like 3 pieces that came from the dungeon run that the player did. The overworld didn't drop anything at all, basically. But again, this is leveling content. Also, this is a beta or alpha.
It was 1 hour. It was 1 hour of gameplay footage. 5 drops in 1 hour of gameplay footage. Oh my God. That is harsh. Listen, guys, we need to understand, due to COVID, Blizzard is in, they have to limit the drops in the game. That's how that works, COVID makes it so that the game drops less items. It is what it is.
Or whatever it's classified as right now. So we won't know until full release how the loot distribution is. Also, because it's a leveling content, it's not going to look anything like the end game. Loot will be much more plentiful when you're doing end game stuff. Of course, guarantee it.
You guarantee it? Damn. I wouldn't do that.
But at least the leveling content in the current build, loot drops are very, very rare. In an hour of gameplay, I kid you not, there were like 5 items that dropped. It was that rare. So pretty interesting. I gotta say, my ultimate takeaway after watching this leaked footage is that this game is looking pretty good. Like, as I mentioned, the gameplay looks spot on. I also absolutely love the look and atmosphere of the game's world, even with the missing textures and the lack of voice acting in this recording. And it seems pretty clear that they're going to be delivering a solid gameplay experience. However, it will remain the case that up until after launch, there's still some things that we're not sure of, like how is the end game and longevity of the title going to hold up? Where will they settle on monetization? We know
don't worry too much about that. I'm sure that somebody's going to leak it from the closed beta. I mean, there's been so many leaks in the industry lately that, that's probably going to happen.
Basics, we know that there's a cosmetic shop and a season pass. How far do they push those prices? And are they going to end up going in that selling convenience route? If so, how bad is that? Either way, any doubt in my mind, at the very least, when it came to the question of can today's Blizzard...
Doesn't Magic Find sounds like a good convenience? I think Magic Find sounds like a good form of convenience.
still make something that looks and feels good to play. These have been seemingly mostly answered. It does appear like Diablo 4 is shaping up nicely. I played the game again 3 years ago at BlizzCon, and I liked what it was then, and it's just looking way better even now. So I'm pretty impressed, although there are still some pretty big questions and concerns that need to be cleared up that we won't know until the game is actually out. In the meantime, though, I will continue to keep my eye on the game. I am happy that I actually took the time to watch this because, yes, it's looking good, and I'm looking forward to actually getting my hands on it again and trying it in the upcoming beta test, which appear to be happening sometime soon. Actually, there was just a blog post released the other day where Blizzard announced that their public beta closed test of the testing of endgame systems would be taking place soon. These will include things like the souped up nightmare dungeons, hell tides, which are like zone-wide enemy buffs for better loot, whispers of the dead, which are kind of like bounty quest it seems, and then the fields of hatred, which is the open world PvP. They'll be testing all of these features, everything centric on the endgame, very, very soon. Invites apparently will be going out shortly.
It's a closed beta,
prioritizing players who have recently spent a lot of time participating in endgame for Diablo 2, Diablo 3, and Diablo Immortal. I am not one of those players, and it's funny because usually I'll jump in and I'll check out Diablo 3 seasons, and a new season just rolled out, I think a couple weeks ago or something. I've been busy farming Altaric Valley for Wrath Classic. I don't know, I'm literally go to the tower, cap the tower, get the graveyard, get that other tower, get those 2 towers, try to stop them from recapping. 10 minutes later, I got 700 or 800 honor, and I do it again and again and again. I'm going crazy, but
it's a sickness. Stop it.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if I get invited. I am hoping to check this thing out. As always, especially with Modern Blizzard, there's a lot of caveats. There's a big old asterisk, and there's a lot of things that are still up in the air. But ultimately, I'm always just looking for fun games to play, and I will forever remain curious and wanting to see where Blizzard goes next with that big old asterisk with Blizzard and modern day Blizzard compared to old Blizzard, all of that. Again, retreading old ground. But that is it for today. That is a look and a discussion about the recent leaks. We'll see what happens with this video. Yeah, all right. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.
For everyone.
Okay, so team, make sure to either watch this video later or something. Make sure to give it some watch time. Like I always say, don't just go in there, like, and leave, because that is actually bad for the algorithm and all that. Check it out. The 5 loot drops for 1 hour of gameplay feels extremely sparse, but like he said, the footage was cut up, so maybe he didn't actually see all the drops. Maybe there were more drops, so you have to take that with a grain of salt right there. I don't know if you can guarantee that Endgame's going to have more drops. We'll have to see how that pans out. I'm definitely not a fan of the prices in the store. I think that 25 bones for a full cosmetic set is way too expensive, because I think it'd be reasonable in a free-to-play game, definitely not in a full-priced box game. But, you know, Blizzard is going to do Blizzard things, so we'll see how it pans out. Force appears to be excited about it, so, you know, maybe that's a good thing. We'll see.